Welcome to Building Bridges. I'm your host, Joe Crocitto. My co-host, Ed Salick, couldn't be with us today because he's doing another show, and I know he would really like to join us. We're going to deviate from what our routine usually is on this program. We always have police officers on the show talking about what goes on in their various precincts, but today we have three gentlemen, and this is a very, very important program. And I have to thank my good friend, retired Fire Lieutenant Paul Cinquamani, for introducing me to these gentlemen. I have to mention Paul by name because, yes, he did introduce me, and now I know he will watch the show since I mentioned his name. But these gentlemen are so well-versed and knowledgeable about the benefits that are available to retired and active police officers and firefighters that were affected by that toxic dust that surrounded Lower Manhattan when those buildings were hit by those two jet planes. So I'd like to now turn the program over to these three gentlemen, and I'd like for them to introduce themselves and tell you what they actually do with regard to this 9/11 issue.
Well, Joe, thanks for having us today, and I appreciate the opportunity to get the word out to the first responders, especially to the retirees who might not otherwise know about the benefits that are available to them. So my name is Mike Barasch. My law firm represented Detective James Zadroga. We represent thousands of first responders who are really sick or who have passed away as a result of exposure to the 9/11 toxins.
Joe, thanks for having us. My name is Richard Alley's, retired FDNY Deputy Chief. I was also one of the original lobbyists on the Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, beginning in earnest with the death of NYPD Detective Jimmy Zadroga in 2006.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm Lee London. I'm an attorney for the 9/11 community. My family really runs deep with protecting the rights and benefits of the NYPD. My father, Stuart London, who's an attorney for the PBA. I grew up around it my entire life, knowing the ins and outs. And really, now that I'm working on the Victim Compensation Fund and the benefits of the World Trade Center Health Program, I feel it's my obligation to get the word out there about all the benefits and NYPD officers can take advantage of under the Victim Compensation Fund.
It's so important to have you gentlemen on the program now because I understand that the fund, the money is going to be running out.
That's right.
And you're fighting to get this extended?
That's right. Well, the problem is after Jimmy Zadroga's death in 2006, they did an autopsy, and in his lung tissue, they discovered ground glass, asbestos, chromium, lead, benzene. These are all known carcinogens, and that was the evidence that NIOSH needed to link what is now 68 cancers. But when they passed the Zadroga Health and Compensation Act in 2011, they had no idea about the explosion of cancers and deaths that we would now be seeing some 18 years later. So they didn't set aside enough money. It's no one's fault. But as a matter of fact, we're going to Washington right after this interview to try to get more senators on board. We have 37 senators who have agreed to support a full funding and extension of the Zadroga Act and the Victim Compensation Fund. That's not enough. We need another 23 if we're going to make this happen.
The 23 that aren't on board, do they give you a reason why?
Yeah, well, first of all, this was bipartisan toxic dust. That's what I like to call it. Didn't matter if you were Republican, Democrat, white or black, Jewish, Muslim, Christian. It affected everybody, including, by the way, teachers who may be watching this. If you were a teacher south of Canal Street, you're entitled to compensation if you've developed cancer. We represent dozens of teachers, thousands of firefighters and cops, of course. But the reason I'm hearing from the pushback from legislators west of the Hudson River is sometimes they'll say to me, another handout for New York City? Really? Haven't we given you enough? It's despicable. And so what we're using is thankfully, we represent people from every state in the union because FEMA workers came from all over, or New York City cops and firefighters retired to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, And we're asking them, and I'm asking your viewers to call their friends in those states and get them to call the senators in those states and plead with them to support a full funding and extension of this fund. I don't know if you've heard this, but they've already began immediate 50% and 70% cuts in the awards that the Victim Compensation Fund is awarding to people with the same cancers who got 100% just before this February. It's outrageous.
It is. It is. That's a shame. You've been traveling around the country, meeting with various retiree groups from the fire department and the police department. Is
That's
that
right.
correct?
Richie and I were just in Chicago. I was in Myrtle Beach speaking to a 1013 group there. Lee was in Buffalo talking to a group up there. Where else have we been, Richie?
We've been all over Florida, really, because there's so many 1013 groups. And fortunately, a lot of the police officers that we've run into are still snowbirds. So when they come back to New York, they kind of connected and know what's going on. But it's the other retirees that they have relocated and stay situated. They don't realize that the health program, which protects them, that they can just transfer from New York to Florida. So the biggest issue with people that come down with illnesses and stuff is when they don't get checked out. So the time flies. When you're a retiree, every day Saturday, I tease them, but 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and all of a sudden, when a symptom arises, it's already too late. And had they just been getting their annual checkup, a lot of things could have been, a lot of people could be saved.
Yeah.
Well, would I be correct in saying that sometimes a firefighter, retired firefighter, may develop a cough and think, well, it's just a cold. But in actuality, it's not really a cold. And if they have moved to an area in the country where they don't see a program like this, how are they going to find out about the benefits that are available to them?
Well, they can look up the World Trade Center Health Program, which, again, it's a national program. And what the government does in the 49 states outside of New York is it contracts through a company called Logistics Health Insurance, LHI. They basically are the middleman for the federal government. LHI contracts with various medical facilities in every state. So once if you're already in the program, if you relocated from New York and you transfer, they will give you the location of the nearest medical facility to your home. You call that medical facility direct, you make an appointment, and that's where you go. A lot of police officers here in New York, they go to Mount Sinai or any of the facilities out in Long Island, Stony Brook, Winthrop Hospital. They're all great, but a lot of people do not stay in New York, and that's the biggest frustration. You have this tremendous health program, but they don't realize that it's anywhere else that they go.
And one thing is that NYPD responders can get into the World Trade Center Health Program without even being sick. You can go for yearly evaluations, and it's a great program to be a part of. So we want to encourage everyone to enroll so the health program has the data available to show that just because you're healthy now and so forth, it could hit you in 2 years from now, 3 years from now. These cancers develop over time. So I spoke to many NYPD clients from 2013, 14, and 15 who were perfectly healthy. And then these cancers come out of nowhere and knock them down. And this is when they're like, okay, now I need to start getting involved in this program. And it would have been a lot easier if they started initially than waiting until they have a diagnosis. We don't want to wait until the God forbid moment happens. We want them to act now.
Yeah, then it's too late.
But I have to say also, Joe, I don't blame the retirees living outside of the New York area for being ill-informed. I mean, think about it. The EPA did us such a disservice when Christine Todd Whitman said the air is safe. And so if you heard those words, even though you were down there, it reeked. You knew something was awful in the air. But if you then moved to North Carolina or Florida, and years later you develop skin cancer, which is our most common cancer that we're seeing because the pH level of the toxic dust was the same as Drano, by the way. So, all these people had the dust going down their ears, their shirts, and we're seeing terrible basal cells, squamous cell, melanomas. But if you developed a cancer like that or any of the other cancers, why in the world would you connect the dots that, in 2008, I had skin cancer. It's nothing. These guys, they just say, they put a little there, they stitched me up, I'm fine. You're entitled to $90,000 and you have no idea. You're entitled to free health care and you have no idea. I don't care if you have health insurance. cancer can devastate your family and it
Absolutely.
can bankrupt your family. So having the health program pick up all the deductibles, all the co-pays is a wonderful thing for our listeners to take advantage of.
And although the fund compensates for skin cancer, the World Trade Center Health Program doesn't screen for it. So we always recommend to everybody that we speak, whether they have private insurance or they're in Medicare, to make an appointment for an annual skin exam. We recently signed a client who was Italian, had dark skin, but he had a couple of spots on his arm. He realized he was otherwise in good health. Made an appointment, got a full checkup. Everything was fine, including the spots on his arm was nothing. The doctor noticed a slight discoloration on one of his fingernails. He didn't like it, went into the biopsy. Not only was it skin cancer, it was a melanoma. They had to
Under his nail.
Under his nail. They had to cut off the tip of his finger. He had to go through chemo, but it saved his life because the doctor said that the cancer cells would have found their way into his lymph node system and popped out somewhere else, all for the sake of having gone for a skin checkup.
You know, sometimes you look at your arms, you look at your hands, and you say, these are liver spots. They're aging spots. And we shouldn't take it for granted that that's what they are.
Right. You got to go to the experts and let an expert train to check.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I understand that Mount Sinai here in New York City is very much involved with this program. And I know a lot of retired police officers and firefighters go there. And, you were talking about the toxic dust, the air quality, and how the former governor of New Jersey, I was thinking of her last night. I said, what a disgrace. How does she put her head on the pillow at night after what she said?
Yeah.
There's a special place in hell for her.
Yeah, there's a special place, yes. And thank God we have Mount Sinai Hospital here to come forward and help all these people. And can you explain a little in more detail what they do?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to say, despite the fact that the federal government and the EPA did us a terrible disservice by assuring us that the air was safe, they did do the right thing in 2011 when they passed the Zadroga Health and Compensation Act. And the health program, Richie, you should, because you've actually been through it at the Bureau of Health Services. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's very cancer-centric, first of all, so they run a lot of cancer screening. And even if you're diligent with your health and you go to your private physician, family history plays a role in what they're kind of looking for and stuff. If you're otherwise in general good health, they're not going to run all of these things. But when you're in the health program, in case of police officers that go to Mount Sinai, which is a center of excellence, probably one of the best in the country,
Yes.
they will screen. It's considered that you have a family history of everything because you were exposed to everything. So that's a tremendous part of it. They do pulmonary function exams. They check gastrointestinal illnesses. These are the three big categories that everyone seems to come down with all of these issues. And then there's a psychological examination as well, where you answer a series of questions. And the very last component of your medical exam is you sit down with a clinical psychologist who will, engage you in conversation. And there's certain triggers, in people's lives. If you were recently retired, that might be a trigger. They might want to see what's going on with you in past history. And I guess based on the connections between all of the questions that you answered, some of them are repetitive. So, that's how they kind of pick things up. But it's tremendous. It's a tremendous up. And a lot of people that I talk to in both the fire department and police department, they go the easy way. They're taking inhalers and things like that. If you're going and taking a 9/11 maintenance drug for any reason, don't go through your union prescription plan. Don't go through Medicare if you're Medicare age. The World Trade Center Health Program will supply all of that. It's an annual prescription. It gets delivered to your home. It doesn't go against your private insurance.
And it's free.
And it's free. It's free.
The biggest thing that I want to say is it's community. So what I tell people is you see patterns. So all of my NYPD clients, I say, you have to join the World Trade Center Health Program. Not only is it a community where you get newsletters, you get benefits, you get up-to-date information on how the 9/11 community has been impacted. If they add new conditions that are covered. So many of these patterns I see with all my clients. One example was someone was asking me if he gets, after his coughing, he gets this weird dry mouth sensation. He went to every doctor. He went to the health program. They had 5 other people in the last week complaining of the same thing because it's a pattern that they see. So it just promotes everybody to go there. And the one question I always get asked is, I have my own doctor. What's the point? I don't want them to run further tests on me. Why do I have to go through this? And what I say is you need to go through these tests at the health program because they're not only looking for what your doctor did, they look beyond. They see how this exposure has, transformed over time, and this is why we encourage everyone to go.
And Joe, if I can speak a little bit to the cancers that the doctors are seeing at NIOSH, which administers the World Trade Center Health Program and the Bureau of Health Services at the FDNY, we're seeing, or the doctors are telling me that they are seeing incredibly rare and aggressive cancers now. So normally, off camera, we were talking about brain cancer because this is Brain Cancer Awareness Month. Well, the normal person that gets brain cancer in America will live 7 years. It's a horrible illness, but at least it will live 7 years if it's inoperable brain cancer. The normal person in the 9/11 community who gets brain cancer lives a year and a half. That's how aggressive this is. In October, because October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we became very familiar with the fact that men also get breast cancer. I can tell you that we really weren't aware of that until we started to hear all these men who were coming forward. So if there were 200,000 men in Lower Manhattan, we should have seen 2 incidents of male breast cancer. Our law firm alone now represents 32 men with breast cancer. I mean, think about that. These are insidious and just very aggressive cancers. So going back to what Richie suggested, going to the health program, these are doctors who see these illnesses all the time. Their antennas are up. They're looking for these illnesses that your regular doctor may not be aware of. I mean, don't you agree?
Yeah, and in the case of male breast cancer, it's always often misdiagnosed by a regular general physician because they're not trained for it. Like we said, we didn't even know men can get breast cancer, but if the telltale sign, women, it's in their DNA, right? So they're taught from a young age breast examination. But for men, you have a sore or pain, you're going to think you tweaked it in the gym, you banged it in the garage. You
ignore it.
Yeah, you ignore it. And even doctors, ignore it. Where you're in a World Trade Center health program, they are trained to look for all of those anomalies.
So the World Trade Center Health Program, that's available not only for the first responders, but anybody who lived or worked below Canal Street.
But the survivors have to have been sick to join the program. First responders don't. And that's the biggest difference between the break in the community, because we encourage everybody to join if you're sick. But with NYPD first responders, you can go if you're sick or not.
The liver, that's an organ that's affected by this. And once it metastasizes, forget it. You're gone.
Right.
It's a
the
shame.
biggest cancers that we're seeing, and you guys fill in the blanks, but skin cancer first, prostate cancer for men, breast cancer for women. I would say those are the most common.
Thyroid cancer now more and more.
Right.
Thyroid.
Thyroid, liver, kidney. I mean, there's 68 cancers altogether, but those are probably the top 8 that we are seeing. But again, again, for your listeners, if you know anybody whose spouse passed away anytime after 2005 and it passed away due to cancer, there's a good chance that they are eligible. The spouse is still eligible for compensation, and they probably aren't aware of it.
What the shame of it, too, is a lot of these first responders that have retired in other parts of the country, they don't have this information at their disposal if they don't join a 1013 or any other similar retiree group.
Well, if they reach out to you, then they'll find out.
Yeah, I think as a retiree, and the very first thing I did was I joined a retiree organization. And I'm out there anyway. I'm connected. I speak to all these police groups. I speak to all the fire groups. But really, you have to stay connected to the community. It means just showing up at a meeting, and there's always food and beverage and the stories and all of that stuff. It's great.
The stories get crazy though after the longer that they're
right. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
You're so right, and I'm going to reach out to the Verrazano 1013 out here. There's also the Brooklyn Staten Island 1013. Two groups of retired police officers. And there's also the Fraternal Order of Police Lodges. I believe there's at least 2 of them out here.
We'd be happy to come talk.
Yeah. After the program, I'll give you some more information on how to contact them. And I'm going to try my best to reach out to them And hopefully they can get their membership to watch this program. And there's a wealth of information that's available.
Yeah, but one thing we really haven't talked about, because of the, I mentioned earlier how there have already been cuts, but I didn't mention the fact that when Congress first established the Victim Compensation Fund and then extended it, it's only extended until next year.
Yeah.
All these benefits go away next year, which is why we've been going down to Washington as much as we have to try to convince these senators, because we have enough congressmen now in the House, but we have to convince these senators this is not just a New York issue. This affects your members too, who are these first responders who are sick, who came to New York and then went back home. So we need more support from these senators outside of the New York area, especially South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. If we can get those 8 senators, we're there.
And the bill that Michael's speaking about is called the Never Forget the Heroes Act. Because in 2011, when the law went into place, it created the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victim Compensation Fund. The one flaw in the law was that it was only good for 5 years. So we had to go back to Washington, got it extended in 2015. They made the World Trade Center Health Program permanent for 75 years. So in 2090, it will expire, will sunset, will all be gone. I mean, if anybody is still sick at that point, I plan on lobbying for them. But the Victim Compensation Fund was only extended for another 5 years. So December 18th, 2020. But because the money is running out, legislation was started in February. That is to bring the Victim Compensation Fund permanently in place to match the World Trade Center Health Program and to refund, so anyone that's subject to a cut right now would be made whole.
So in other words, people with cancer will get $250,000. People who lose their career will get an award for their lost income. But we have to make this bill pass so that everybody is fully funded.
Because the benefits out there are just, unbelievable. If you speak to any clients that have been suffering for so long, they might get their medicals covered, but bills are piling up at home. Their kids are starting to start college. They're wondering, where can I get the help? And the Victim Compensation Fund gives them that help. And we deal with a lot of clients that, could be healthy now, but 5 years from now, 6 years from now, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's why it's so scary, because we have so many clients that will be healthy one day and then can be terminal the next. And the Victim Compensation Fund really steps in when you have somebody that's terminal, because they really do the right thing and they can expedite an award for that terminal patient and terminal client within a month or less to make the family, okay, and as much as they can during this trying time.
The toxic dust that I referred to earlier in the program, can that still be around below Canal Street on some of those rooftops?
I'm sure it could be, but the official ending of the crisis was May 30th, 2002. So they look at the exposure dates, and for all the firefighters and cops, it's pretty much they were there during the first few days. But for any of the responders, the commuters from Staten Island or through lower Manhattan to other places in New York, if they were there for a certain amount of time within the next 8 months, they will be found eligible for both the health program and the Victim Compensation Fund if they have a certified illness.
So we have to make sure that we tell everyone, just don't rely on your private physician. You should go. You're eligible, especially if you were in that area or if you were a first responder. I have friends that were down there, and they were down there without wearing masks. And I lost a friend not too long ago, and it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Yeah, there's not a firefighter or a cop out there who doesn't know a bunch of other buddies who've already passed away. As a matter of fact, in our firm, because we represent thousands of first responders, nearly a day, I would say not a day goes by without one of our clients dying. It's really heartbreaking.
You watch the what was televised on the day that the buildings fell, and you watched all those firefighters and police officers and first responders rushing down there, and they knew the danger. And even after the incident, they were going down there every day, volunteering. And I have a cousin who went down there. He lives up in Connecticut, and fortunately, he's doing well. But those firefighters, the police officers, first responders, and even civilians that lived in the area went down there to help out. And they have to get checked. They really have to go get checked. And I get checked because I was with Paul. I was down in the home port where the firefighters were coming in, and they were we were cleaning their clothing and we were feeding them. And but I get checked, and thank God I'm doing okay.
You're not ignoring it. But most of the guys I know, it's not a question of if they're going to get sick. It's a question of just when.
When.
Because everybody was exposed. So if Jimmy Zadroga had ground glass and all those other carcinogens in his lungs, we all have it in our lungs too. I mean, our office is just 2 blocks away. Yeah. I'm one of the guys you see running away from the dust, but I was caught in the dust cloud, so I know. I go for my checkups too. You have to.
And we don't want to chase anybody from their private physician. By all means, get your annual checkup. I'm married to a nurse. I just overlap it by 6 months. I get my regular general checkup, and then I go for my 6 months later for my World Trade Center health program checkup. It's just a good insurance.
And everyone has to realize if you are in the zone, you are more susceptible to other conditions that are out there. You have to protect yourself. And this is why we do this, just because we've seen so many stories where, they don't want to face a doctor. I have it, my problem too. It's hard to face that doctor and get, this response, but you have to. You have to just move forward for your family, for your future, just so you can protect yourself. That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely. And I was shocked when you told me what they found in Jimmy Zadroga's lungs. I can imagine how many other people have that condition.
All of us have it. We're just, some of us, our bodies are all different. Our immunity systems are different. That's why some people get cancer at one time and not at another time. It's a crapshoot, but we were all exposed to the same toxins. So you owe it to yourself and your family. And if I can throw in one other thing,
sure.
Do a will. I mean, you're not going to believe this, but our law firm has been in the middle of so many family fights, and it's unnecessary. Take advantage. There are plenty of law firms like ours that do free wills. Do it, because do you know that only 10% of firefighters and cops even have a will? I mean, they think they're bulletproof, but at least 30% of the general public has a will, but so few responders do it. So you're doing your family a favor rather than letting a judge decide who's going to bring up my children or who's going to be the executor or the beneficiary of the estate.
Well,
and Joe, if we have a little bit more time, I just wanted to mention the World Trade Center disability law, which was a piece of legislation that passed in 2005. And think about it, 2005, a year before Detective Zadroga died. And in 2005, I can assure you that 9/11 health and compensation was a distant pipe dream. So the police unions and the fire unions did tremendous lobbying work up in Albany and got a law passed called the World Trade Center disability law. And simply said, the Reader's Digest version of it is that it protects any police officer or firefighter that was on active duty on September 11, 2001. And when they retire, it takes the presumptive lung legislation that the firefighters had, to protect the presumptive cancer legislation that the firefighters had, into retirement for 25 years. So when a police officer retires, they were active on September 11, 2001, and then they have on a service pension. If they come down with one of these respiratory conditions or one of those cancers, they would reclassify their pension to a disability pension. It would be 75% tax-free. Their spouse would be entitled to line-of-duty death benefits if they should die of that illness.
Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on this program. I mean, it is such a wealth of information, and I just hope that we can reach out to all these people that could have been affected by 9/11 to see this program, and I'm going to do my best to make sure I can get the message out as well.
Thank you, Joe.
And we're going to close the show, but I want to tell you, next month we're going to have a fantastic program. We're going to have the former Assistant Director of Training at the New York City Police Academy, so that's going to be fantastic, that program. It's going to deal with a topic we haven't discussed here at all, compassionate policing. So we look forward to seeing you again. Please return to see our program, and you take care, and God bless.